The most extreme form of bereavement is parental bereavement, and I know firsthand of this pain after losing my baby girl Millie at just 6 days old. With no indication of complication prior to her birth, it came as a complete shock. We never got to see her eyes, we never got to hear her cry. As the weeks passed and we were riding the tsunami of grief, those around us expressed how useless they felt. They too didn't know that we felt so useless. We didn't even know what we needed, but I knew at that point that I needed to speak out. From Millie's life and death, this podcast was birthed. Little Life, Big Loss. As a safe space to talk about baby loss, grief, trauma, heartache, and hope. A safe space for lost parents to share their stories of their real-life angels. A place for our nearest and dearest to learn about our journeys and to gain a deeper understanding in how to help those who are riding the tsunami of grief. Welcome to Little Life, Big Loss. Hi there, Millie's mum here. My name is Rochelle and I am the creator and host for this podcast, Little Life, Big Loss. Whilst I hadn't planned on adding trigger warnings to the podcast, because let's be honest, our whole life and this whole podcast is one big trigger, I would like to preface a few things. Every episode I record could include any of the following: birth trauma, stillbirth, neonatal loss, termination for medical reasons, mental health, suicide, grief, and all things in and around all of this. Episodes might also mention living children, pregnancy, and pregnancy after loss. Please read the caption for a summary of what you can expect in this episode. The opinions shared by guests on my podcast are the opinions of those individuals and do not always reflect the same opinions of mine. We are not professionals, we are just lost parents sharing our story. If you hear of something that you wish to try for yourself, please seek professional guidance from a psychologist, a GP, or an OB. And finally, thank you for all the love and support that we have been receiving. I'm in love with this safe space that we have created for our babies to be spoken about in such real and raw detail. If you feel connected to an episode, please share it with someone that you think might help. And if you would like to help our community, we have created a PayPal account, and we are asking that each time you listen to an episode, you just donate $1. If you go to PayPal and you search Little Life, Big Loss, any donations to that account will help us do so much more in this space. Thank you again so much. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Little Life, Big Loss. We are praying to the tech angels right now that this continues to record and work because we have been having a little bit of trouble this morning. Can you hear me, Hannah?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Olive and Millie are just like working their magic right now.
After half an hour of mayhem.
I know. Goodness me. It's just everything. Like, I blame the app, I blame tech, I blame all the things, but let's be honest, it's probably us as well. Whereabouts are you located? Are you in Sydney?
Sydney.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
On the northern beaches.
Oh, nice. Okay, so you're not even remote. We can't even blame, like, country Wi-Fi or anything.
I'm in the big smoke.
I love it. So today we're going to be hearing Hannah's story of her beautiful little Olive. And do you know what I didn't realise is that your loss was only just last year.
Yeah.
It's so crazy when people say it to me, like, oh, when I saw that you had a podcast, I thought you must have had your loss so long ago. And because I know you through making the beautiful, if anyone's watching on YouTube, you're going to see something really beautiful.
Oh.
Look. It's got millions.
I need to check that it's exactly what you had in mind.
It's
and if it isn't, you're allowed to say, because I would make you another one. The pink didn't turn out how I thought it would.
It's not as pink as I thought it would, but it's still pink and it's so perfect. Like, honestly,
okay.
I've done a little video. I need to put it up on Instagram and stuff. I did do a little snippet of opening it for, like, you know, for everyone. It's absolutely beautiful, and it's even got Millie's name in. So Hannah makes pottery, and she donates free urns to bereaved parents, which I just think is so beautiful. Like,
yeah.
And I reached out to you a little while ago and was like, I'd like an urn. And like, it's so funny because they're free for us, but I was also like, but I feel like I want to pay for it. And then you did your little donation thing a little while. Sadly, you had so many people reach out that you needed more donations to be able to do it for free, which is so wild. And so I love what you're doing. I love that I finally received Milli's little urn, and it was a really big moment, like so I only got it yesterday or the day before, and I guess like I weirdly had become attached to that ugly foam box that it was in. Like it just like I was like, I'm moving it. I've actually kept the box. I don't know if that's strange, but like I don't want to throw it out. And a friend of mine had gotten made for me a beautiful timber box, and it has Milli's name and her date of birth and all the things on it. And so I had that little foam plastic box in there. Okay, so, it's like, but now she's got this beautiful pottery thing, but I'm like really scared of breaking the urn. Like, I don't know, I'm just like, I know, but it's just all a part of the process, and it's a new little phase, and it's just moving her ashes from one place to another, and it's a big deal. So
have you moved her yet, or not yet?
No.
On my Instagram highlights, there's a whole highlight about actually getting the ashes in there and how.
Oh yeah, sorry, that was my first time doing it, but I did put her in there, but I've kept it in the bag.
Oh, yeah, I think that's good.
Yeah, I just felt strange putting her straight into the pottery.
I wouldn't put the ashes straight in. One, because the lids, because it's handmade, they're not completely sealed.
Uh-huh.
And two, because if something did happen and the urn fell down and broke, then the ashes are just
going to be... Oh, my God, I would die. Yep.
I would die.
Yeah.
I would die.
We got, I don't know if you saw my Instagram, but I got Dylan a ring made for Father's Day with Milli's ashes in it.
Oh.
And on New Year's Eve, we were at a band and he was clapping and the ring broke and was on the floor of a busy pub on New Year's Eve, and I was a mess. I couldn't believe it. So we have this ring that's broken, shattered into 4 pieces, and the ladies offered to fix it for free, but I'm like, that ring should never have broken. Like, my baby's ashes were...
What was it made of?
I think it's called tungsten. But, like, I'd explained he's a roofer, he uses his hands, he's a tradie, he won't take it off, like, it needs to be really strong. And she said the reason it broke was because it's made to break in case his finger got stuck on a tool or something. And I was like, I get that, but I wouldn't have bought it if I knew it could have broken. Like, I just...
Yeah.
It was mortifying on New Year's Eve to see the ring that your baby's ashes are in laying on the floor broken in a pub. And I'm like, I had people on their hands and knees looking for it. I was...
Oh, that's awful.
I know.
Sorry that happened.
I know. So now I'm just like, she's like, you can send it back. And I was like, I don't want to be sending her ashes everywhere. Thank you. Like, it's just... So anyway, they're so precious. But I do absolutely love my little... I just think it's so stunning. I think you've done an amazing job. And I know that it was made with love as well. I think that's what I love so much about it as well.
Lots of love.
Yeah.
Doing the pottery is my therapy, really. That's how it all started. Well, I made Olive one.
Yeah.
And then when we become part of this community... People will say, oh, that so-and-so has also experienced the loss of a baby, and then you get put in touch with people. And I made some other urns for new friends, I guess. Yeah. And then it just grew from there.
Had you ever made pottery before?
I had probably about 5 years ago. I did a few lessons just at a local pottery studio. And then... We've got an older daughter who's 3, Billie. When I had her, and then it was COVID as well, it just all went to the wayside. Like, I didn't have time to do it. And it's like when you do it, you like set everything up, and then you have to tidy it all away again at the end. And you need like quite a bit of time to do that and space. So I didn't do it much. And then I got back into it when we wanted an urn for Olive and couldn't find anything that we felt was right.
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, like if we can't find any urns for our baby, surely there's other people out there that also haven't been able to find something that's quite right. And that thought was correct. And
I love that.
Lots of people have reached out, and I use a Google form now. I got that idea from your podcast form, actually, because I was like, Google form, I'm a Google girl. I use all Google. So I made a Google form so I can send that link to people who reach out, and then they can fill it all in. And I can still add little customizations, like there's a spot to leave a note, or you can just message me. But that's made it a lot easier because I was spending a lot of time on Instagram DMs going back and forward.
Yeah.
So that streamlined it all for me. And we just turned a room downstairs, which was all storage, into my studio.
I love it. It's so fresh and just lovely, and what a healing space.
It's really nice to just have a space, because until now it's just been shit everywhere. And it was time to condense it all to one spot.
And I love that was like your birthday present or something to get, like, from your that's such a, I'm so for like thoughtful birthday gifts and stuff. I'm like, if there's no thought in it, I don't want it.
Yeah, well, it was still my idea.
Yeah,
like,
that's fine.
What I would like.
Yeah.
And it started with my husband, Ben, his sister, her birthday last year. She said, I don't want anything, but I just want help in our garden to clear this area and put some turf down.
Perfect.
So I was working in the morning, but I went in the afternoon. Probably really didn't do very much at all, except
I was there.
Entertained my own daughter. And then, they've got a lawn now, and that was her birthday present.
Yeah, that's great. Such a good idea.
Then after my one was sort of the second one. After that, everyone's just like thinking in their head what they're getting for their birthday. Ben's like, I'm getting the house painted.
Great. I love that. It's such a good idea, because we all have enough, right? We have enough. We have all the things. We have everything on our beck and call. You can have anything delivered to your door in a day.
Yeah.
You don't need things.
No.
So I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. And I was going to say one thing, and I can't think of it now. And pottery. Oh, yeah. We will put your link to the Google form and your Instagram, and even a donations link and all the things in the show notes, so that anyone that's listening that's like, oh my gosh, I want to donate to that, to you to get more urns for people, or if they want to order one for themselves, of course, or just order gorgeous little pottery things any way they can.
Thank you. There's a website in progress.
Yay!
It'll have everything together, and it'll be much easier to navigate than going to my page and trying to work out what's what. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
That will come in time.
Websites always help. Amazing. Well, let's get right into it. So I know you haven't listened to many episodes of The Potty, so it's not a bad thing at all, because you won't know what's coming. So my first question is always, who was Hannah before she experienced baby loss?
Oh, gosh, I wish I'd studied. I could have prepared my answers. Who was Hannah?
To be fair, that's the only question you have coming to you, by the way. It all leads from here.
Yeah, okay. Who was I?
You would have... I truly believe that our DNA and our souls change the day that we lose our child. A child dies, and we just absolutely... It changed from the inside out. Prior to Olive.
Yeah.
Who were you?
Yeah. I'm trying to answer it without saying things like my job, because that's not who I am. That's what I do.
What do you do?
Who was I? I guess one thing that I've noticed a change is I've definitely become a bit more spiritual since Olive came and went, because we have to look for the signs, don't we?
Yeah.
And that brings comfort. I've shared a lot since Olive, pretty much from the start. I did used to share lots on social media before that, and it probably was mostly the cheerful stuff. Occasionally I'd share the shit things, and people always appreciate that.
Everyone loves seeing the shit.
And they have done since Olive as well, and it helped me to share, because it was like I was getting it off my heart and
absolutely.
letting the burden be spread out. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I was a mum before Olive. Had Billie.
Little Billie.
She was 2.5 when Olive was born.
Yeah.
And I was a wife to Ben. We got married just over a year ago. We've been together. I think I've said 10 years.
For the last 5 years.
15 years. We've probably been together for nearly 15 years.
Yeah, wow.
What else? I'm a midwife.
Ah, cool. I didn't know that. Or
I
maybe
went
did.
back to work after
Wow.
Olive, and that was horrendous.
Wow.
I took all the mat leave I was entitled to.
Yep. Good.
And then went back, and the first shift was atrocious. I just cried the whole day. Literally every 10 minutes. Every time I saw someone new, they would give me a hug or be like, "Oh, Hannah," or like do the pity face, even though they don't mean to, and it would just set me off. It wasn't even being in the place where we birthed Olive, and it wasn't even the work of like, oh, she's got a new baby and I don't. It wasn't even that. It was just seeing people again. Did you find that a trigger, seeing people for the first time? I just
went to a hen's party on the weekend, and it was a girl I went to school with. I've seen her a billion times since Milli. That was fine. I knew what I was walking into, but I forgot that her sister and her mum would be there. And her sister walked in, and she just went, "Love you," and hugged me. And then she just burst into tears, and she went, "Oh, I'm so sorry." Like, and she shocked herself that she cried when she saw me, and I was like, it's okay. Like, and I was consoling her. No. And she's like, "Oh my gosh, no." It's like, and it was really awkward. I was okay to cry, but she felt shocked that she was crying. We're at a hen's. But I get it all the time. The first time somebody sees me, my clients, they walk into my salon, they cry more than I do. Yeah, I do. I know exactly how you feel. It's people are just like, what? And this overwhelming emotion hits them.
Yeah.
For us, which I think is beautiful. I'm like, what we experienced is really fucked, and that person feels it.
Yeah. I remember reading something about the one of the hardest bits of grieving in the early days and seeing people is like the people that you might see all the time, like your barista, for example, who they saw you and you were pregnant, and now you're back there and you're not pregnant and you don't have a baby, but they don't know you well enough to be like, "Oh, what? Like, why aren't you pregnant anymore?" And you feel like you don't know them well enough either. Like, I felt like I just wanted to go around, and I did to one coffee place I go to. I asked some friends who are friends with the owners. I just asked them to tell them, so that I just wanted them to know, and then I didn't have to be like, "Soy cat, please," and also my baby died.
I know, like, you do literally want to tell everyone.
Yeah.
Like, I still, like, 7 months I'll be standing there and I'm like, they don't know my baby died. Like, you just want to tell them. So I've started doing the thing where you order a coffee and you use the name Milli.
Yes, it's so nice.
And so then, like, you're standing there waiting, and then they're like, "Milli," and you're like, "Oh, that's me."
I love it. It's
I know.
Thing.
And it's like, but yeah, it's like, oh, they don't know my secret. Hold on, my dog is scratching at the door. He's such a little nightmare. Okay. Hold on 1 second. Hello, honey. Come on. You come. He's like, "Excuse me, Mum, can I come in?" So it I don't know if you've seen on socials, because she's up here in Southport, but there's a girl who's quite famous on TikTok, millions of followers and likes and whatever, and she's known to be really controversial. Her baby just died of SIDS, like, last week. and he was only 6 weeks old, and it's wild. And she's done this video the other day where she's like, losing your baby makes you feel genuinely fucking insane because you constantly just want to scream, my baby died. And I just felt for her because I thought, man, you're only in the beginning. Like, literally, you still, I don't know how long it lasts for, but like you just want to tell the person you've just ordered your coffee from, your baby died.
Yeah.
Like, and I had when you were just saying that story, I was picturing when I went into the chemist, because I was so sick during my pregnancy, I was always going in there getting the Zofran and stuff. And I remember walking in a few days later to get Valium, of all things, and the lady who was always serving me looked at me like excited. She looked down at my belly and saw that it was empty, and then she looked at my arms that were empty. And I just looked at her and shook my head, and she just went, what? And we both just burst into tears, and we're crying in the chemist, and it's like, it's so, it is those people that see you in all the shops, and 1 minute you're like heavily pregnant, and the next minute you're just not. Like, it's fucked. It's so fucked up.
It's fucked. There's nothing else to say there.
Yeah,
that's an awful bit of it.
Yeah. And so, were you not spiritual beforehand, or you're just more spiritual now?
I was definitely open, but I was immediately more interested.
Yeah.
Because I was like, where is she now? We immersed ourselves in a Netflix show called Surviving Death. I think it's maybe 6 episodes or something. And it's about near-death experiences and like what happens when we die. And there was some stories on there that I was like, wow, like there's definitely more to the world than we know.
I love that.
And that was very comforting. Some of it was, there was one episode that was like a bit too intense.
Okay.
But most of it, and they've got academics on there and people who have studied it their whole life, and some of it, like, it wasn't all woo-woo. It was very palatable for even Ben, who is definitely wasn't, but now he is.
Yeah, that's
like
beautiful.
The other day, he saw a huge flock. He said like 30 black cockatoos, and at the very beginning, we said to each other, like, let's ask Olive for signs, and let's make it not something too, like, let's not make it like a rainbow, because we'll probably see them all the time.
Yeah.
So we made it a black cockatoo.
Shut up.
Is that Milli's as well?
No, but they're just so rare. Just like,
I know, yeah. They're around, but we would rarely see them. I think I've seen them twice since we've lived here, and we've been here almost 2 years.
Wow.
So, and we weren't really seeing any. So I was like, we might see like an artwork in a shop.
Yeah, which is
like
still,
that's
lots, beautiful.
Not actual black cockatoos, but lots of them depicted in various places when we went away for her due date weekend.
Wow.
But I was like, but that's just us noticing them. I need something like really solid, but I think I'm being a bit greedy. Like, I don't want to land on the fence right there.
Right, yeah, of
which
course.
Which hasn't happened. Anyway, I was telling Ben, I just went to this weekend away called Roots Festival. It's a women's embodiment festival.
Wow.
And I went to a women's circle there, and I shared, this is irrelevant, but I just shared some stuff about my body. I just said I feel like I'm a bit cross at my body, and I want to just not be cross. I want to love it, because I want it to hold another baby one day, and I don't want my cervix to open too early again, like it did last time, and like I feel like I need to forgive it. And then we were talking about signs, and I talked about the black cockatoo one, and they were like, well, maybe Olive's like, that's not my sign. Like, I'm choosing my own sign. And then the woman next to me spoke. And then after that, one of the facilitators said, the sun, it was a rainy, overcast day. She said, as you three started talking, the sun came up. And then when you finished, it went back down again. And I was like, oh my God, okay, I have to tell you another story. When Olive was getting cremated, our funeral director told us when it would be because we wanted to know. Like, I want to know all those things.
Wow. Yeah.
And we told our family and friends, and they all lit a candle or had a toast or something at that time. Was it a Tuesday? I think it was a Tuesday at 4:00. And Ben and I were just sitting in bed together, just crying. And his Spotify was playing. He's got like 700 and something songs on his liked songs. And you know how Spotify, when it flows, it stays in one genre and then it'll move along so that it flows. I can't remember what genre we were in, but it wasn't this. One song finished, and then Here Comes the Sun by the Beatles came on.
Like, I love that.
We were just sitting there, and both of us looked at each other, and we were like, what? What? We couldn't believe it. We listened to a lot of the Beatles when we first started dating. We both loved the Beatles. And then Here Comes the Sun. We were like, what does that mean? Is that her? And it was 4:01 p.m.
Yeah.
She was like, is that her saying the sun, like it's dark and stormy, rain clouds now, but the sun's going to come out? Or is she going to send us a baby son one day? Oh. And it was just so, it was very obvious. And that was very comforting at the time.
Of course. And then for that lady to say it when you're on the retreat.
Yeah.
That was then, like, maybe that is her thing and that she is choosing it herself.
Yeah.
And it's so funny that you say that about that song. So I actually went and did Reiki yesterday, which I don't normally do. I haven't done one for like probably 5 years. And when I left, I was like writing notes of what I'd remembered and stuff. And literally I was thinking about my notes from last year, and the song that kept coming up last year, 5 years ago at my last Reiki session was Here Comes the Sun.
Wow.
Not even kidding you.
Wild.
That was the song that came up for my Reiki session like 5 years ago. And I would literally go back through the notes and find them for you and send them to you later, because that's really crazy. She kept seeing yellow and Here Comes the Sun and sun shining through like palm trees.
Oh.
Yeah. How cool.
Oh, that's lovely.
And so Ben saw a flock of black cockatoos.
Oh yeah. So I was telling him on the weekend about how I'd shared that we've had signs here and there, and I think that's her, but I'm aware that you can be like, oh my God, a leaf. Oh, we saw a leaf on the day that Olive died.
I know.
That must be, I'm really conscious of that. That's why I wanted something really solid, but I am being greedy. Anyway, I was telling him about me saying that, and he said that's weird because when I was driving today, I saw heaps of birds in the sky, like 30, and I was like, what are they? Because they weren't, we don't see like flocks of black cockatoos, and it was about 30 black cockatoos all flying around and then all landed in a tree together.
Oh my gosh. And we do have to look for those things, and it doesn't matter. And that's why sometimes, like, when I see things, so what I loved on my birthday last week was that people had messaged me saying, somebody wrote to me specifically, I hope feathers and butterflies fall from heaven for you. And I literally was sitting at breakfast with a girlfriend, and I shit you not, a feather fell down and landed in my hand. Like, I looked at my girlfriend and I was like, I'm so glad you're sitting in front of me so that I didn't just make this up in my mind.
Yeah.
Like, did that just happen?
That was so nice.
You know, they're so specific. And then this pink, obviously pink is Milli's colour. Anything pink is her. And this pink flower fell from wherever. And I'm looking around, there was like no pink trees around. And then we looked, and like all the way up about 10 stories high, somebody had a pink garden on their balcony.
Wow.
And this one pink flower. And I'm like, that is my girl saying happy birthday.
Her.
Like, that's undeniable in my eyes.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Gust of wind.
Oh, that's okay. I do need to close my door because I can hear them using the microphone. Such a professional podcast. Letting the dog in, closing the door. It's all part of it, right? Last week, my auntie ran in. She went out and bought me like some a matching t-shirt and short set, and she got so excited that she dropped it in, forgetting that I'd be recording. So she like runs in the podcast, gives it to me, gives me a kiss on the cheek, and leaves again. I'm like, see you later. All right, beautiful lady. Let's get into your story. So you've given me a little bit of like I've got a little bit of context of what's gone on in terms of like your cervix and stuff. But tell me, how did you go conceiving Olive? And let's talk about conception and pregnancy.
Yes, okay. We decided to start trying. When we fell pregnant with Billie, it took 5 months.
Yeah.
So I thought it might take a few months again. And we got pregnant before we were even properly fine.
Okay.
Like my period was late, and a colleague at work was like, "When are you having another baby?" And I was like, "Oh, actually,
my period's late."
Says my period's late, and then I did a pregnancy test at work, and it was positive.
Oh my gosh.
So that was a surprise. We were about to start trying, but that month I definitely wasn't like, might be pregnant. And I must have ovulated a bit early because I think there was one time, and it was early in my cycle. So I don't know. I don't know.
Meant to be.
And at the time we were like, oh, this little baby must really want to be here.
Yeah.
But she's not, is she?
Yeah, but she didn't. She made her mark on the world.
Come and go, yes, and left a mark she has.
Yeah.
So, fell pregnant spontaneously, quickly.
Yeah.
Which I felt very grateful for. I was really sick in the pregnancy, and I was a bit sick with Billie, but nothing like this.
Okay.
I was, it was very debilitating. I was just in bed for, it got easier around 14 to 16 weeks. And I had a few weeks where I was feeling good and starting to feel movement. But up until then, the first several weeks were really hard. I lost 6 kilos. I'm only small to start with. I wasn't vomiting so much that I couldn't stay hydrated.
Yeah.
But I was nauseous 24/7. It was horrendous.
Yeah.
So that was hard. I know you understand that because you were sick too.
Yeah. And you don't get diagnosed with HG because you're not vomiting continuously, but you're just constantly sick.
Yeah. I don't think I would have had that diagnosis. I read all about it at the time because it was all I could think about. I think I probably was in the category of severe nausea and vomiting in pregnancy. Yeah. But not hyperemesis because I wasn't unwell with it in terms of being dehydrated and having electrolyte imbalances and everything like that. I could stay hydrated enough. Yeah. But I just felt atrocious. I felt awful. I couldn't work. It was very bad. And then it was all going fine, and I went to my 20-week scan, and she was perfect, and we didn't know what she was. We were going to have a surprise. Mm-hmm. And then right at the end, they get you to do a wee and do the internal to check the cervical length. Mm-hmm. And when she did that, she said it was short, and I got upset straight away because I could see how concerned she was, and she got the doctor in as well and took heaps of photos. And because as a midwife, I know what that means and what it can lead to. And then they sent me straight to hospital to get assessed to have a stitch put in my cervix.
Okay.
And I went and they did a speculum examination at work to see how long it looked and if it looked closed. And it did look closed. So they said, let's try progesterone pessaries.
Yep.
And reassess in a week. So I started using those, and I had quite an irritable uterus. Like, I had lots of tightenings, and I remember noticing tightenings really early with Billie. I think partly because I'm a midwife and I know what it might feel like.
Sure.
But also I think I had a bit of an irritable uterus with Billie as well. Not painful, but just constant tightenings. And I had that this time too, but not painful. And then about halfway through that week, I had a day where it was painful. They were feeling like period pains, and they were coming and going, and I could palpate them on my tummy. I could feel that my uterus was going hard, then soft, hard, then soft. So that was scary, and I went to the birth unit to be assessed. My cervix looked closed then again. Yeah. But we brought my scan forward a couple of days. Went to that scan. I was told to pack a bag and be ready to go straight to hospital to have a stitch put in if it was shorter.
Okay.
So that was an anxious morning. I was like ready to get the scan and probably get a stitch. And my cervix was the same as the week prior, same measurement. So that was amazing. That was so reassuring. It was such a big relief. Ben and I went out and had a nice breakfast because I'd been fasting.
How many weeks were you at this point?
I would have been 21 weeks and 4 days.
Okay.
Yeah. Then that next week was good. I was feeling good. I was feeling positive. And we went for the next scan 1 week after that to see if it had changed. I was just expecting it's going to be stable because I haven't been feeling any pains, and I just felt positive. Yeah. I just felt good. And we went in and it had shortened more. They sent me to hospital again, and I had a stitch put in that day. So I had a general anaesthetic, and two of the doctors stitched my cervix closed. One of them took a photo to show me when they went in. They could see my cervix was actually already open. Couldn't really see how long it was, but on the scan it was around 1 centimetre long. They should be at least 2.5, but can be up to like 5 centimetres long, and that can.
What does that mean? Explain what that means.
That's
and
the
looks
neck
like
of the womb. Like, you know, imagine a balloon.
Yeah.
Blown up.
Yeah.
The balloon bit is where the baby, the sac, the placenta, the amniotic fluid is all in there. Yeah. And then the bit where you blow the balloon up is the cervix. And that stays long and closed during pregnancy to keep the baby in there, keep the baby safe. And then in labour, the cervix shortens until it's paper thin and opens fully all the way so that there's no cervix left around the baby, and then the baby is born. So you need your cervix to stay closed in the pregnancy to hold the baby in.
Yes, and that's where they put the stitch. Okay.
Yeah, and that went...
Oh, and when you're saying that it should have been a certain length, you're saying 1 centimetre. It should be how many centimetres normally?
At least 2.5. What's the average? Oh, I don't know. Our average length is probably 3 to 4 centimetres that we see on a 20-week scan report.
Yeah. I think like this is all ringing a bell, and I didn't know what it meant at the time, but I think mine was 3, and the sonographers were worried, but my OB was like, I'm not worried about that. That's great. Or normal. Okay. Fine. So, yeah. Okay. Yeah. And so yours was 1.
I think it was 11 millimetres, if I'm remembering correctly. On the scan, they didn't say that it was open. They could, I don't know if they could quite see or what, but when the doctors actually went in, I've got the photo somewhere on my phone. You can see that it's a bit open and you can see the amniotic bag, the membranes, like the sac that holds the baby in the waters. But the procedure went well. There's a risk with the procedure that the needle they use to stitch can pop the bag of waters. That's the big risk.
Yeah.
There's a risk of infection because you're introducing something foreign to the body. There's risks associated with having an anaesthetic. But yeah, the procedure at the time went well. That my waters didn't break. They were able to stitch it closed.
Yeah.
I went back to birth unit for that night to stay overnight and have some antibiotics to combat the risk of infection and just be monitored, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And then that night, I was going to bed and I just went to the toilet before I was going to go to bed and I felt a pop. I think it was when I sneezed or coughed or something. My waters broke. And it was just a little prickle. The fluid was pink. It wasn't like I knew it wasn't wee. It was only a really small amount though. And I buzzed and my midwife that was looking after me that night came in. And she had a look and she was like, I'll get the doctors. And then the doctors came in and they did a speculum examination to have a look inside. She was like, I can't see fluid, but we'll do this test that we do to see if any fluid is amniotic fluid or not amniotic fluid.
Okay.
And you wait 5 minutes and it's 2 lines if it's amniotic fluid, 1 line if it isn't, like a bit like a pregnancy test. And we waited the time and that was just horrible. It was like 11 p.m. at night. Ben had just gone home to have a good sleep at home. And yeah, it was positive. So I knew my waters had broken. And that was just horrendous. That was an awful moment.
Yeah.
And my midwife called Ben to get him to come back in. And then the next day, I didn't go into labour. I was having on and off tightenings and period cramps, and I was draining Lycor, the amniotic fluid, just constantly.
There's not anything they're able to do to stop it? Like they can't?
No. Once the bag is broken, then it's broken. Like you can't stitch the bag back together or anything. Although occasionally we have women who break their waters early at some point in the pregnancy, but before 37 weeks, and they usually get admitted and have antibiotics tablets and IV antibiotics for a couple of days, and then frequent monitoring, and occasionally they've stayed stable and stopped draining the Lycor, the amniotic fluid, and sometimes even gone home. And the thought there is that maybe the bag reseals itself sometimes. But there's nothing you can actively do, I guess, except treat with antibiotics to reduce the risk of infection, and hope for the best and wait.
Far out.
I knew that, so I was 22 weeks and 4 days at this point. I knew that it was too early to, if she was born, that we wouldn't even be offered active resuscitation, and that's not something we would have wanted at that gestation anyway, because the outcomes are so poor. And I thought I would just labour because I felt like it was starting, but it just didn't eventuate. And we were of the mindset, like we knew we had to make a decision as to whether we would carry on and hope for the best. Which I don't know what the best would have been, or opt to induce the labour and have her knowing that she wouldn't survive. And it was an awful time because I just almost wish I just went into labour and we didn't have to make a decision, because
of course
it's an awful decision to just, it's an awful decision to make.
Fuck.
So the next day, as I think more about this, I don't know how it happened because it's very not kosher, but I think I asked if I could speak to the neonatologist at Royal North Shore Hospital, which is a major hospital in Sydney, and I used to work there, because I wanted all the stats and the likelihood of what would happen if she was born at this point.
Yeah.
I just wanted all the information from someone who this is their bread and butter.
Yeah.
Because at our hospital we've got doctors, of course, but our nursery is for 32 weeks and above.
Sure.
So a huge difference, obviously. So my friend Jane picked Ben and I up and took us to North Shore, and we went and had this meeting for an hour or so. And even before that, but after that we felt I don't know, I can't say, like, we felt good about deciding to have her.
Confident in your decision.
Yeah, we felt validated, and like we weren't just like it wasn't an unreasonable decision. It was quite a reasonable decision to make, to do that, because the alternative was maybe I would have got into labour the next day, or even 3 days later, and she would have been 23 weeks, and they would have offered resuscitation, and then maybe she would have survived a few hours and then died, or a few weeks and then died, or survived and been severely disabled. And we just thought about everything. Like, we didn't want that for her. We didn't want it for us. We didn't want it for Billie.
Yeah.
But I was talking to my friend this morning, actually, and saying I felt a bit anxious coming on this podcast because I've had a look through your previous episodes and just the titles of them, and I feel like on the spectrum of baby loss and termination for medical reasons, which at the end of the day, like, that's what we had. We had a termination because the outlook was dire. But some people might look at our story and think that maybe there was a chance and that we didn't even give her a chance. And like, I do have thoughts occasionally of like, what if we didn't induce the labour? And what if I didn't get an infection? And what if the bag sealed up and I carried her to 30-something weeks and she was born and did well and had a normal life? I know statistically that the likelihood of that happening was minimal, but I still can't help but think about that.
Yeah. Please don't feel like you're not worthy. Like, hold on. This podcast is a podcast that nobody wants to be eligible for, right? Like, that, it's the catch line of, like, it is a podcast no one wants to be eligible for, but please don't feel like you can't share your story here, because termination for medical reasons is a fucked decision to have to make.
Yeah.
No one wants to make it. No one... And you're even making me think, because I've had so much anger the last couple of weeks because we've recently found out that we could have been diagnosed, Millie could have been diagnosed in utero. And I'm so angry about that. But then, like, hearing you speak, because Dylan is glad we didn't know, and I'm like, I would have preferred the pre-warning or whatever. But then to have to be given... If I had to make that decision, I wouldn't have wanted to make that decision anyway. You know,
Yeah.
so it's like, I just think even if I found out right near the end, and then we could have made better choices with her time on Earth, but the fact that you found out so early, and it's not as if you just made the decision out of nowhere, like you seek all the possible, you know, advice and options and things, like you didn't just, yeah. I can so understand why you feel the guilt and the grief. Like, I can understand all of that. That's so valid.
Yeah. I thought, of course, I still want to do it and chat to you because I've got no doubt there's other people out there that might have had a termination for a diagnosis that wasn't necessarily an incompatible with life diagnosis, or a diagnosis where there's a spectrum and you don't know how severe it's going to be. So I still wanted to talk about it, and then even if it just helps one person feel seen or heard, I'll be happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we have had other people on here with termination for medical reasons, and it's no easier or worse. You know, it's so fucked. I pray we never have to go through that. And like when we had our diagnosis originally that Millie was had CDG, which has now been altered, and that's not what her condition was. We're waiting for our genetic results, but like we still have the risk that we might have to terminate a child if we fall pregnant and they have this genetic disease if we fall spontaneously and not through IVF. That's a fucked decision to have to make.
Yeah.
You know, and that's still a loss. You still have to wait till 11 weeks to be tested and then make that decision. I don't want to have to make that. Like, I don't want to ever have to make that decision. And so it's so valid. It's
an awful thing to look down the barrel of.
And so genetically, there was nothing wrong with Olive.
It was my body.
Oh, honey.
Yeah, she was fine, and she was born alive.
Mm.
She was alive for about an hour.
And so, did they induce you, or is that still classed as a termination? So, is inducing you classed as a termination for medical reasons?
Yeah, like a termination for medical reasons, depending on your gestation. If you're under around 16 weeks, I believe it is, in Australia, you'll be offered a D&C or a D&E, where it's a procedure where they get the baby out while you're under anaesthetic. Or if you're over that, it's not recommended or as safe to do a D&E or a D&C. So you have labour induced and birth the baby vaginally.
And yet they don't class they class it as a miscarriage up until 20 weeks, and then a neonatal loss over 20 weeks. Yeah.
Which has implications for maternity leave. And also just the terminology is not fine. I just think we need to just say loss and not a label.
Yeah, baby loss in general.
Yeah.
Child loss. It's a soul.
I had complications after Olive and had to go to ED because I was unwell. And two people referred to Olive as my miscarriage. And I know that I know that they weren't being rude, and I also recognize that me being like, mine wasn't a miscarriage, it was this. It's almost like me being like, no, that minimizes what happened to me. But I'm so conscious that people who had what's classified as a miscarriage also had a loss of their baby, and like that, there's no hierarchy. Like a loss is a loss is a loss, but just the language around it will affect people differently. I didn't take it to heart and get upset, but I thought, what about for another family in this situation where 2 weeks ago they've given birth to a living baby that now isn't here, and then someone asked them when their miscarriage was. It just doesn't feel right.
No.
And I hope I've articulated myself well there, because I would loathe to upset anybody.
No, I think you've articulated it so well, and I know that sometimes I've been struggling lately because I get really angry when things are said, and I, yeah, it's a very, very hard, touchy subject. We had a miscarriage before Millie, and then 2 years of trying to conceive, and even just a negative pregnancy test fucking crushes your soul. Do you know what I mean? Like, and that feels like a loss within itself. A neonatal loss, like giving birth to your baby and then your baby dying, I can truly say it is very, very fucking different to the miscarriage that I had. But I still don't take away the pain of what a miscarriage is. And I've said it on my Instagram for the last couple of weeks, like, when Dylan and I start trying again, I do not want to experience miscarriage because it will fucking crush my soul. You know, so they're still all absolutely soul crushing, but the way you have articulated it is so beautiful. It is all a loss, and it sucks. And I've had a girlfriend who's been trying to fall pregnant for 7 years, never once had a pregnancy test positive. That's fucking soul crushing. You know, like it's all loss, and it all fucking sucks.
Yeah, it does. There could be a whole conversation around the language in this space.
Yeah. And so you spoke with a neonatologist. You guys had made your decision to be induced. How did that go once you were induced?
The first step was to take out the stitch that had been put in the day before.
So did the stitch fail? Or was that the cause of the waters breaking, or would it have broken anyway?
Who knows? I don't know. I don't think anyone knows. I don't think we'll ever know. When the stitch went in, the waters didn't break. The waters broke hours later. Would they have broken if I didn't have the stitch? Would they have broken that night? I don't know. Maybe they would, maybe they wouldn't have.
Okay.
Why did my cervix open early? Don't know. I had swabs for all kinds of infections. Nothing came up except one showed E. coli. That was a swab of the placenta, but I did a poo when I birthed her, and that's E. coli, and so it was very likely contaminated. Also, if I had an infection in my womb with E. coli, I would have been extremely unwell, and I wasn't. I would have been septic. So we're not counting that as the possible infection. Or do I have something called cervical incompetence, which is a horrible term, but incompetent cervix, where it just doesn't stay closed during pregnancy. Don't know.
Okay.
I'd carried Billie to term, and that was fine.
Normal vaginal birth? Like, was she...
No. Well, she came out my vagina, but it was a forceps birth. She was in a brow presentation, which is super rare. Like, it was her forehead was coming out first, and they don't come out that way. Like, you had to be manoeuvred inside in order to be born vaginally.
Sure.
I've read somewhere that previous deliveries with forceps or traumatic deliveries can mean that the cervix has been damaged at that time. I highly doubt, because I'm sure my cervix was fully dilated, because about 58 people checked it. No, not that many, maybe like 4. No, maybe 3. I think only 3.
Okay.
And I had a skilled doctor who delivered Billie. I've had a Lex procedure. I had CIM3 on a pap smear a few years ago, and I had a Lex, and where a centimetre of my cervix was like amputated, basically taken.
Oh, wow.
But that was pre-Billie, and I carried Billie fine.
Yeah.
I don't know. And it's going to be an absolute head fuck next time we have a baby. Because it's not like the last pregnancy's problem was a baby thing. It was me. And so I think I'm going to opt to have a stitch around after the NIPT test. If that's all normal and everything is well with the baby, then I will have a stitch then, I think.
Yeah.
And the evidence is, well, because we don't know why it happened. If I do have an incompetent cervix, or if I did have an infection, if it was an infection, probably don't need a stitch, because hopefully I don't have that infection. But if it is my cervix, then a stitch is a great idea.
Yeah, and it's not... I had a friend who had a stitch and had her baby and everything was fine. So obviously it's something that can work and does work and is a good option.
Yeah, and if it's put in earlier, before there's all the weight in the uterus, then that's associated with better outcomes than having what's called an emergency stitch, when it's like, oh, it's changing, let's put one in. I can't remember how we got here. Like, why did it happen?
So we...
Oh, had the stitch taken out. Yeah, the stitch was in. So I had the stitch taken out. That's just done not under general. That's just awake. I used gas. It was very painful. But I can't say that it was traumatic or awful or anything, because I was using maximum gas and I was on another planet and laughing. I was laughing. That's fucked.
Oh, shit.
I was laughing while my stitch was being removed so that we could have our baby knowing she'd die. Like, what the fuck?
Shock, trauma. You do strange things.
But it came out, and I thought and hoped that I'd go into labour with the stitch out. Like, my cervix has been trying to open, and we're like,
out,
no,
let's open. Like, yeah.
No, you don't open. Stay closed. Then we take the stitch out, and then it didn't open.
Fuck.
And we talked about options with the doctors, like if we would use misoprostol, which is a medication used in miscarriages and in terminations, or if we would use syntocinon, which is like the oxytocin drip that women have in an induction of labour. And we were given the choice, and with the oxytocin we could have started right away. It was the afternoon. And if we did the misoprostol, we would have waited till the next morning. And I was like, well, I've had a baby before. My body's already trying to do it a bit, because this whole time I was niggling, like on and off contractions, but never regular, never in a pattern, never super painful, but I wasn't comfy. So I said, let's do the syntocinon, because my body will remember and it will just kick into gear, and we can turn the syntocinon up every half an hour, and like, we've made this plan and decision, so let's just do it now.
Yeah.
We started that, and just nothing. Just nothing happened. I got an occasional contraction. I got up to the maximum dose, and then at about midnight, I was like, let's call it in half an hour if nothing's changed, and try the other option in the morning. And I walked around for a bit and like tried to get gravity on my side and get things going, and just nothing. And now I know, And this just was not in my head at the time because I wasn't thinking straight. That when you're 22 weeks pregnant, you've not got the oxytocin receptors ready to receive the oxytocin and act on it. Like, you get them in late pregnancy when you're going to labour and birth. And so I just wasn't responding. And now looking back, I'm like, I wish I thought about that. Or also I wish that maybe someone had said, you might not respond to the syntocin. So we stopped that, went to bed. I don't know if I slept. It was all just a blur. And then in the morning, we started the misoprostol regime, where you have a big dose first of tablets, like under your gums, in your mouth, or sometimes it's given vaginally, and then every 4 hours until you birth or until you're in labour. And that worked. We started, I don't know what time we started, but I had her at 6:51 that night. It probably got intense from around 3-ish. And then I used gas and I used the TENS machine. I had my friend Jane there, who was early pregnant. She was like maybe 12 or 13 weeks, not feeling great. But she was there the whole day.
She's a midwife, or she was just a friend?
She's a midwife too. Yeah, but she doesn't work at my work. She was there in support. And Ben and beautiful midwives. Amy and Megan were the midwives there for the birth. Once I started having her, it was really quick. It went very slow. And right before she was born, there was another pop of waters. So I think there must have been we call it 4 waters, where there's like another pocket of fluid in front of the head. And once that went, then she just came and I just caught her and put her on my tummy. And she made like a little noise at birth, and she moved a bit. So straight away I knew she was alive. And we don't listen to the heart rate in labour when you know the baby's going to die, because there's no point.
Sure.
But I hadn't felt movements for probably that whole day. So I thought maybe she had died. So when she was alive, it was nice. I don't know how that is nice, but I don't know. I just felt like it was. And then she stayed on my chest for maybe 20 minutes or half an hour, and then wanted to hold her as well. We just snuggled up in bed, and he had her on his chest, and we just played her music and talked to her. And we could see her heart beating in her chest. That's how we knew she was still alive. But it just got slower and slower, and then it stopped. And then we spent the whole next day with her. We had a cold cot. We had heartfelt cum, which I'm so grateful for. Ben was a bit unsure about that, but he's really glad we did it in the end. Because he's not like a photo shoot guy at the best of times. Like, let's have a family photo shoot on the beach. He would just absolutely no way.
Yeah.
So then to do that with your baby who has died. But we're both really glad that we did it. We got beautiful photos. She was so cute. Excuse me.
You're allowed. I love that you had that time with her. I love that she was breathing when she came out, and that you got to...
We took her outside. But we just snuck her outside. I just held her in it close to me and I had a blanket. That was so nice. I'm so glad we did that. It was our funeral director's idea. Like I'd said, I really want to take her outside, but like I can't really do that. She was like, why not? Like, I can't just go down in the lift with a deceased baby. Like, what if someone gets in?
Yeah.
And she was like, they might say, oh, have you had a new baby? And you'll say, yes, I have. Her name is Olive. And I was like, I think that you've been around too many dead people. Like, I can't do that. And then she was like, you just hold her in your arms, we'll put the blanket around you. And I was like, yeah, okay, let's do it. And then we got to walk out of the hospital doors for the first time since having her with her in our arms instead of without. Then we went back inside. No, then we put her in Anne's car, our funeral director. We put her in there ourselves. Like, she never went to the morgue. She never went to the morgue. I just didn't want her to go there. And I didn't want some random in their black car and in their weird suit to come in and get her and take her somewhere. I didn't want that, and that deserved to happen. And this is all stuff I didn't know. Like, I didn't know it could be like that, and now I do know, and now I just want to make it better for everybody.
And that's what I like, even though Dylan and I are in disagreements with the whole knowing before and not knowing, and even though you have to make terrible decisions when you do know, but like every decision we made with Millie was like under shock and trauma, and I just wish that we had more options. Like, when I hear how beautiful it was that people got to take their babies outside, and like we got offered that at the time, but I was like, oh my gosh, I just can't move her. And I feel like she had been so traumatized for the 6 days in hospital. Like, she constantly had tubes, and like she was treated for a head injury for 3 days when, had she have been diagnosed in utero, we would have known it was never a HIE.
Yeah.
If she was, if she was diagnosed in utero, they would have never tested her on MRIs and EEGs, and they took a fucking skin graft from her arm. Like, my baby didn't have to go through all of that, and I could have just birthed her and put her on my chest. And yes, we might not have got 6 days with her. We would have had like less time, but it would have been more beautiful, intentional time with her. And I just think that is so beautiful.
Yeah. Like, you can't go back and think.
I know.
You can't, like, not you, just, yeah, no. Like, we can't. Yeah. You, and my friend Jane said this to me today on the phone, and now I'm saying it to you. Like, you made the best decision with the information you had at the time.
Yeah. So hard. So hard. Even just like knowing that we left her at the hospital, like we just like walked out and just left her there, like, and we had a friend come and pick her up, because then I was like, once we got home, I was like, fuck, she's at the hospital on her own, like, what do we do? And then my friend's mum was running the funeral home to run the funeral for us, and so I said, please, can you get your mum to go get her? So like, it was my friend's mum that picked her up, but I didn't even for a second think that like we could go pick her up or that we could go get her again. Like, I mean, I know in hindsight we know all these information now, right? Like,
yeah, we don't have a reason to know all the ins and outs of what to do when your baby dies. Like that, we just don't know that. I'm a midwife. I didn't even know all the options.
I know, I was just going to say, do you think you knew more because you worked there? But, like, you guys don't even get bereavement training or anything, do you?
We get a bit at uni, but then the rest of it is learning on the job. And then often when we have a situation where there's a family having a loss in the birth unit, the same the same midwives will take those cases, or people who have had experience. So it's hard to even get the experience.
Get the experience,
we want everyone to have the best experience, like as good as you can possibly in those circumstances. And part of that will be having a care provider that's familiar with bereavement care and feels comfortable with it and is competent at it.
Yeah.
So
that makes sense.
I think that's hard for early career midwives.
Yeah.
I definitely have a newfound interest in the bereavement care.
Yeah.
And I've got some books, a little help from Jack and a little help from Remy for the birth unit at work that was donated.
Yeah.
By Jack and Remy's mums.
Yeah.
And there's another book called Guiding Conversations, which literally is a guidebook on what to do when you've been given the news that your baby's died or he's going to die.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And that's a free resource online.
I don't know that book.
It's downloaded print. I've taken one of those into work and put on the notice board with a little note saying this is another good resource we could print off.
Guided Conversations, did you say?
Better. Yeah, Guiding Conversations. I think it's from the Stillbirth Alliance. I might have made that up. I'll tell you for sure, and then you'll know. Anyway, that's a good resource.
Okay.
Because you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, yeah. So we weren't given that, I don't think, but this is also the thing when you're in the thick of it and you're in like the depths of the trauma. You can only remember what, like I remember them saying like that they gave us the bears of hope, and then I remember them offering a heartfelt coming, and then I was saying to someone the other day that we didn't get offered a room to go into, which I was okay with because we had this like little area of and someone said, oh no, we did get offered the room, but I didn't want to move Millie. Because and so I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's interesting. Like that makes sense. And that's why we ended up going upstairs to my hospital room, and we didn't choose to go to Hummingbird House.
Okay, yeah.
Or anything like that. So like, yeah, you do get offered all of these things, but yeah, when you're in that moment, you just don't think that you're going to ever have to make these decisions.
It all just blurs, doesn't it?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And so this all happened in April, 28th of April, 23.
Yeah, 28th of April.
So March, you're 10 months. 10 months?
10 months, yeah. Yeah.
And isn't time so funny? Like it feels like every day feels like a fucking drag, but yet time feels like it's flying.
Yeah. Yes.
Like how has it been? Like
I can't believe it was last year.
I know.
It feels so strange that it was last year. When I first said that out loud, I was like, oh, I don't know. It's weird that it wasn't.
I know.
The same year.
I so know what you mean. Like when the fireworks went off on New Year's Eve, I burst into tears. Like, oh, 2023's gone. And even though it was like the most awful year ever, it was the year I birthed my baby. Like it's her year. 2023 is Millie's year, and it's like I hate that it was last year as well.
Like a chapter's finished,
but yet not even close to be. I know.
It's a strange feeling.
And so it's so funny because before we pressed record, I said to you, the podcast can be really educational. And I said, we're not professionals, but here you are, a midwife. And I feel like this episode has been so educational and amazing.
I'm glad.
Yeah, no, so cool. So you spent some time with Olive, and then you spent the next day with her as well in the cuddle cot.
Yeah.
You took her outside, you brought her back in.
Just under 24 hours with her.
Yeah.
Our family came and met her. Lots of my colleagues came in and met her. Ben's best friend met her actually because him and his wife had their second baby like 2 hours after Olive.
Oh,
A
fuck.
few doors down.
His best friend.
Yeah.
Fuck. Is that
They
so
named her-
hard?
They named her Elsie Olive. Before they
Oh,
knew that we'd had Olive and called her Olive.
no
When
way.
we told her that Olive was Olive, straight away, Jeff, Elsie's dad, was like, we'll change Elsie's name, like, so that Olive is yours. And we were like, absolutely not. No, like, no, she's Elsie Olive. But I thought that was a very generous thing to say.
That is so generous. That is actually beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And what a divine, like, if somebody named anyone Olive now, you'd be like, no. But what a divine moment. I'm the same, by the way.
I don't think I would.
No?
I don't think I would. Because I just think it's a nice...
It is
No.
such a beautiful name, I'm not going to lie. I love Olive.
Yeah.
Depends who it is.
Millie's a lovely name too.
I love Millie. I love my
Yeah.
little Millie. Millie Rose. And so when you spent time with her, you spent 24 hours with her, you had a cremation, did you have a funeral?
We had a birthday party.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
Yeah.
That's so cute.
Having a funeral didn't feel aligned.
Mm-hmm.
That just felt not right for us.
Sure.
Like in a funeral, you talk about the person's life and like, I don't know. I just don't know how it would have gone.
Yeah.
It just felt like a formality that we would do just because that's what you do.
Society does, yep.
And I didn't want it to be like, I didn't want to have to look for readings or something
Of course,
to have
yeah.
something to say. I don't
Yeah.
know. Didn't feel right. That was something I didn't know. I thought after 20 weeks you have to have a funeral, but you don't have to have an actual funeral. You can do whatever you want. You just have to engage a funeral director and then they'll support you in however
okay.
you want to do it. We
That's
just had
great to know.
a gathering at the pub that we got married at. And
I love that.
it's just like afternoon drinks at the pub. I made her a book with photos and anecdotes and things that I brought to the pub. And she had cake, had cupcakes. I brought her ashes in a makeshift urn that was like, I think it must be a coffee canister or something. I got it from H&M. I literally went to the shops with her ashes in a Ziploc bag to like try it.
Make sure it fit. Yeah.
Yeah. If anyone saw me in H&M, they would have been like, what is she doing? And I was like stuffing a bag of ashes into a canister.
Let's be honest, nobody actually would have known what you were doing because like no one would actually think that's what's going on. But if you ever approach a woman whose baby's just died, you would have literally said, my baby died and this is her ashes. Because that's as a matter of fact as we get. And then the shop assistant would have literally just wanted to crawl into the ground.
Oh, aren't people just so bad with grief?
Oh, so bad.
We all need to learn and be better.
Yeah. My real estate agent was here last week standing in this room, which is Millie's fully equipped nursery, and he said, it's okay, you'll have another one. Like as if I'm just going to, if he told me that his wife...
God, duh. Why didn't you think of that?
Of course, I'll just have another one. Oh, yes, I'll just replace my child
Oh
with
my
another
God.
one.
How could we have just overseen that? Of course we can just have another one.
I mean, and if his wife dies, I'll just say to him, it's okay, you'll get another one. Like, you don't. That doesn't happen. You don't say that.
You don't say that.
You'll have another one.
And he didn't mean it with malice, because he just didn't know, because we don't learn, we don't learn how to deal with grief. And everyone ever in the world is going to experience grief. Because grief is just love with nowhere to go. So if you love, you're going to grieve.
Oh, I love that. And look, it's hard for people that haven't experienced it, right? I have a very estranged relationship with my parents, my mum especially, but both my mum and dad. So when I know that Good Morning podcast is two women who have lost their mum. Yeah. I don't resonate overly well with it because my mum's alive, but I don't have a great relationship with her. I feel like I lost my mum. She left when I was 12. And she has a drug addiction, right? So I lost my mum a very long time ago. So when I listen to their podcast and it doesn't resonate with me. So I can imagine that if I tell someone that my baby died and they've never experienced that, and especially if they're not overly maternal or paternal, they're not going to resonate with that to be able to say the right things, I guess, So I do have empathy and grace in that area. And our real estate agent is a divine man. He definitely didn't mean to hurt me, but it's just so funny when people say things and you're like, how did that even just come out of your mouth?
Yeah. Or at least you can get pregnant. I got that one.
And carried full term. I got pregnant naturally, carried full term, and I'll have another one. And the funny thing is, you actually can't guarantee that I'll have another one. You actually can't guarantee that, so you just...
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So, speaking of, are you guys planning on having more babies?
How definitely would like to have another baby. Mm-hmm. Probably just one. I remember when I was in the thick of being sick in Olive's pregnancy, I remember thinking we're definitely not having a third. But we definitely would like a third.
And isn't it so hard? I was thinking that the other day. I was in the gym and I finally feel good and I'm back into the gym and I had this moment of frustration in a very selfish way. Fuck, I have to go through all of that again. My body has been through so much.
I feel so unfair.
I think I said it in my second podcast, talking about baby postpartum without your baby, and I was like, I went through the whole pregnancy. I vomited. I put on the weight. I lost the weight. I've been through the grief. I've done all of that. I don't have my prize. I don't have my daughter. Major surgery where my uterus got cut twice. I have the T incision. Have to do all the things. I've had an IUD put in. I'm having the IUD taken out. I'm taking the natural herbs. I'm taking all of the fucking pharmaceuticals to help my mental health. And I don't even have one child living on Earth yet.
Yeah.
And we've also done 2 rounds of IVF and tried for 2 years prior to that. My body's been through a fucking lot.
Yeah.
Oh my word, and I'm
what you need to go through before
I have a child in my home. Yeah. It's so wild.
A live, healthy baby.
Yeah.
She was alive.
She was alive. I know. I've never been able to bring a child home, but it's so fucked up. It's so fucked up. What were some of the things that you found helpful after Olive that people did? What were things that were helpful and perhaps unhelpful?
Very helpful was a meal train that our friend Megan organised. She's a colleague at work, and the link just got spread through my work community and friends and family, and we had meals dropped off every day for 2 months.
That's so good. I know, because meal train normally just goes for 2 weeks, and I know ours got extended for quite some time too.
That was so helpful. And I think other people, because we don't know what to do, we don't know how we can help. Other people felt good being able to do something tangible that they knew was helpful for us.
Yeah. And if it's not home-cooked meals, like if meals aren't your thing, like I find that I'll either drop groceries, like even just milk, bread and some frozen meals.
Yeah.
If people love to cook homemade meals, great. Or Uber vouchers. We really, like quite often will just send $50 in an Uber voucher and then they can order whatever they want.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you guys were the same, but like if we couldn't be bothered going to get dog food and leave the couch, we would order Coles delivered dog food or, you know, whatever, and then use the Uber vouchers to get it delivered. Genius.
Oh, great. Yeah. Whatever you need it for.
Yeah, you can do that in the meal train, and I found that when we didn't want to leave home, that we would just do a Coles delivery with that money.
Yeah, everyone eats. Food is never going to not be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that was, in terms of practical help, that was huge. I'm so grateful to Megan for organising that and for everyone that brought us food. Yeah. Our family was so helpful with Billie, and like cleaning our house, bringing us groceries.
Yeah.
They just did stuff.
Yeah.
Without saying, what can I do?
Yes. Don't ask. Just do it.
Yeah. Yeah. What else? I loved reading in the first few weeks. I read a lot. The most helpful book was Resilient Grieving by Lucy Hone.
Oh, yeah. I've listened to a podcast with her. She's a doctor?
She might be like a doctor of psychology or something.
Right.
I don't think she's a medical doctor.
I think she's Dr. Lucy Hone or something.
Yeah,
Resilient.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Resilient Grieving.
Resilient Grieving. That was my favourite one. I've recommended that lots of times. Miles Apart was another very good one.
I have that and haven't read it.
I read one called Flowers in Our Wounds.
Aww.
That was put together by a woman who birthed her son at my work. One of my colleagues emailed it to me in PDF format.
Mm.
And then I read that all in a day. It's stories of termination for medical reasons.
Wow.
I think a lot of the stories are from people based in the US, so the procedures and the terminology is a little bit different and really varied stories, but similar themes in terms of feelings and thoughts. Anyway, after I read that, she reached out to me to order an urn for her son. And I was like, I've just read your book.
Oh,
it was a nice full circle moment.
Yeah, that's so good. How good is our community?
The worst, best community ever.
I know. Everyone is just divine, and it's just like the most
support.
Mm-hmm.
That's huge. Talking to people who have been there.
Yeah.
That's very helpful. What's not helpful? I can't think of anything specific to say because people are only doing their best. They just, if they say something dumb or if they don't say anything and just disappear, it's because they aren't equipped with the skills to manage when their friend is grieving.
Yeah. So
I can't say anything there because it's not people's fault that they go quiet because they don't know what to say.
Yeah.
And maybe if you're listening and you've got someone in your life who's grieving, you can even say, I don't know what to say. You can say that.
I agree.
Or, because that's an acknowledgement.
Mm.
Yeah, acknowledgement was important. If I knew that someone knew what had happened and then I saw them face to face and they didn't say anything, I was a bit...
Yeah.
I don't know what the word is, but just some acknowledgement would have been nice.
I agree. Because it is always, I think people get worried like that they're going to bring it up, but it is always at the forefront of our mind.
Yeah.
So if I'm having a conversation
I'm sorry
with
your
you...
baby died. Oh, fuck, I forgot she died. Thanks for bringing it up.
Great. Now I'm just going to remember it for the rest of today. You're hilarious.
Yeah, we're always thinking about them anyway.
Yeah, and so if the conversation isn't there, I personally feel more awkward that it's not being brought up.
Same.
Yeah. Like,
it's like I know that you know that you know, and you know that I know that you know, and it's like the elephant in the room.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, I totally feel that. And so, and even if they do say, I'm so sorry, I don't know what to say, it's just so shit. Like, that's what I will say to people. I'm like, that is so shit. It is so shit, and I'm so sorry, and this is fucked.
Yeah.
Can I give you a hug?
Just anything.
Hug, cry.
Yeah. Some kind of acknowledgement. And you don't have to launch into a whole conversation about it.
No.
You can just...
Even just a silent cuddle. Like, sometimes I'll just cuddle people and just, this'll do.
Yeah.
Like, just let me stand here for a second.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then also I love getting inboxes from people like, hey, I just saw this pink rose as I was out walking.
Oh, yeah, me too.
Like sometimes I'll get messages from people like, I've walked past this pink bush for the last 3 weeks and I just have to finally send it to you and say that I think of Millie every time I see it. I love that. Like,
yeah.
You know, I just love it so much. Like, I've already written down that black cockatoo for you because I'm like, okay, the next time I see a black cockatoo, that's Olive saying, can you say hi to my mum and dad for me? You know, like, not every sign is for us either. And I truly believe that, like, our babies send us other people's signs for us.
Yeah. Yeah. I have an example.
Yeah.
My friend, sorry if I've interrupted you there.
No, go.
My friend Liz, who I've become close with after Olive because she also had a loss of baby B a few months before Olive. She messaged me the other day saying, and she's expecting again, saying, I've been thinking about Olive a lot recently because I'm nearly at the gestation that you were when you had her. And I was just thinking about her. Then I've just had a shower and got out and randomly a feather has landed on my foot, like fresh out the shower. I know.
Like, how does that happen?
How? She sent me that to let me know. I appreciate messages like that so much.
Me too. Me too. And because it's like, I think it also, like, it not only, it acknowledges our babies, but it also acknowledges that people feel our pain.
Yeah.
Like, I really know that people feel our pain. And I had someone say the other day, like, men don't get it. And I'm like, you know what? I actually think they do. Like, I've had, like, one of my good friends' husbands is so emotional when he comes, like, to our house or when, like, because he's got daughters. And I'm like, when you know what it feels like to have a daughter, and Dylan has said the same with a lot of his mates who have daughters, like, they're so emotional about it because they know what it's like to have their daughter and how much they love them and how much it just, you know. And so then to think about Dylan losing his baby girl or me losing my baby girl is just like, ugh. So when you get the messages from people like, I'm thinking of you, I'm thinking of Millie, it's like, oh, they feel us. Like, they feel that. And I love it. I think it's such a sweet gesture from anyone who does that.
Yeah, it means so much, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on.
Yes, I've enjoyed it too. Thank you very much for letting me share.
A good laugh and a good cry. Nice little mix of both.
Yep.
You're so sweet. And it has been very educational as well, the whole cervix thing and the womb and the balloon and all the things.
That's my analogy.
No, it's great. It makes sense because, I mean, isn't it so freaking wild that we are women and we have children and we do all these things, but we don't even know how our own fucking body works? Like,
Yes,
I've never pictured that that's how the cervix and stuff. And I've had a girlfriend who's had the cervical stitch. I've had a fucking baby and I still didn't know that that's what the inside of my body looked like. It's amazing.
I'm going to send you some diagrams.
Oh, thanks. I love that. I mean, I know the uterus part. I've endo, right? So I've got all of the U-shaped pictures.
Yep.
You know, but I just didn't know the cervix part.
Yeah.
I hope people watch on YouTube because, like, I'm doing a diagram of it. Oh, my word. And I'm going to put if you can send me a text message with all the links to all the things for you. I'd love to put it in the show notes. I'm going to do a little reel of the urn today that you made for Millie because it's beautiful and amazing. And just thank you. Thank you for everything you're doing and thank you for being you and thank you for sharing.
Doing this and for setting this whole podcast up. And I can see, like, the clay is for me. This is like part of how you manage going forward and find meaning and put your energy into something good in the baby loss space. Yeah. And like I said to you at the beginning of it, you know, I'm having a fucking awful day, but then I just love being able to sit in this space with another lost parent and just like, it almost like, it's like we're sharing that grief together and it's so nice. Yeah. Yeah. It's so nice. So thanks, Rochelle. You're so welcome. Hope your day gets better and better. No, thank you. Thank you so much. Big hugs. Back at you. Bye, beautiful girl. Bye. Bye. Thank you for listening to Little Life, Big Loss. If you are here because you've experienced baby loss recently or a long time ago, I am so sorry. If you have never experienced the loss of a baby, but you are here to learn, thank you. If you are here because you have just had the news that you have to make some really tough decisions, I am so sorry. I hope these podcasts give you the help and the guidance that you need. If any of today's conversation has triggered any uneasy emotions for you, please contact Lifeline on 13 11 14 or lifeline.org. Another organisation working specifically with pre- and postnatal depression and anxiety is PANDA, PANDA. You can find them at panda.org.au. And remember that postnatal depression and anxiety does not discriminate. It can affect both men and women, mums and dads. Please seek help from your GP, psychologist, your local hospital, a midwife, OB, Lifeline or PANDA. I love you and I miss you, my Milli.